I have always been the reliable one in my family, the person everyone could count on when things got tough. After our parents died, I used my life savings to buy a house for my sister Amanda and her 2 kids to live in after her divorce. I took one bedroom and paid the entire mortgage myself, just happy to help family in need. But last month, Amanda and her new boyfriend kicked me out of my own house, the one where only my name was on the mortgage. Before I tell you how my own flesh and blood betrayed me and the shocking consequences that followed, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever been taken advantage of by family. Growing up as the oldest of 3 siblings, I learned responsibility early. Our parents worked multiple jobs to give us opportunities they never had, and I took my role as big brother to Amanda and Daniel seriously. We were close, despite the typical sibling rivalries. Amanda was 2 years younger than me, smart and ambitious but often impulsive. Daniel, the youngest, moved across the country for college and settled there, visiting only on major holidays. Our lives changed forever 5 years ago when I was 30. Mom and Dad were driving home from their anniversary dinner when a drunk driver ran a red light. They died on impact. The 3 of us were devastated, but we had each other to lean on during the painful months that followed. As we sorted through our parents' modest estate and childhood home, we discovered they had very little savings, but had paid off their life insurance policies. We split the proceeds equally, each receiving $50,000. At the time, Amanda was already struggling. Her marriage to Jack had collapsed under the weight of his alcoholism, leaving her a single mother to 7-year-old Noah and 5-year-old Lily. She had a part-time job at a local boutique, but could barely afford the rent on her small apartment, let alone childcare. The loss of our parents, who had helped her tremendously with the kids, hit her financial situation as hard as it hit her emotionally. I had been fortunate in my career as a software engineer. After graduating with honors and working my way up at a tech company, I was earning a comfortable 6-figure salary. I had been saving for a down payment on a house of my own, and with the addition of my inheritance, I had enough to make it happen. The solution seemed obvious to me. Instead of buying the sleek downtown condo I had been eyeing, I purchased a 4-bedroom house in a good school district. Amanda and the kids would take 3 bedrooms, and I would take the smallest one. I would pay the $2,500 monthly mortgage, and Amanda would handle the utilities and groceries. It seemed like the perfect arrangement, a way to keep our family together during the hardest time of our lives. The first 2 years went remarkably well. I became something of a father figure to Noah and Lily, helping with homework, attending school events, and teaching them to ride bikes. We established family traditions like Sunday movie nights with homemade pizza and summer camping trips. Amanda slowly regained her footing, moving from part-time to full-time work, even getting a promotion to assistant manager. Of course, my own social life took a hit. Dating became complicated when women discovered I lived with my sister and her kids. My friends gradually stopped inviting me to spontaneous outings, knowing I often had family obligations. But seeing Noah and Lily thriving in a stable environment made it all worthwhile. They were doing well in school, making friends in the neighborhood, and the shadows of sadness from losing their grandparents and their parents' divorce were fading from their eyes. As Amanda regained her confidence, she began dating again. Most of the men she met were understanding of her situation, respectful of our arrangement, and kind to the children. Some relationships lasted a few weeks, others a few months. But none seemed serious until Richard entered the picture. Richard worked in commercial real estate, always impeccably dressed in tailored suits, driving a luxury car he was quick to mention, was fully paid off. He showered Amanda with expensive gifts and took her to upscale restaurants. The kids were initially charmed by his presence and the outings to amusement parks and indoor water parks. The first time I felt uneasy was about 3 months into their relationship. I overheard Richard asking Amanda why she allowed me to live in what he called her house. It is not her house, I wanted to correct him. It is my house that I am sharing with her. But I said nothing, not wanting to cause tension. Amanda explained our arrangement, emphasizing how much I helped with the kids. "Seems to me like he is using that mortgage to control you and the kids," Richard said, his voice smooth but his words sharp. "No man does something like that without expecting something in return." Amanda defended me, but not as strongly as I had hoped. "Theodore has always been there for me. He is just being a good brother. If he wanted to be a good brother, he would have put the house in your name, Richard replied. Think about it, Amanda. As long as his name is the only one on that mortgage, he has all the power. I walked away before hearing her response, a knot forming in my stomach. The comment revealed something troubling about Richard, but also planted a seed of doubt. Was I somehow using the house to control my sister? That had never been my intention. But Richard's words made me question myself. Over the next few months, Richard became an increasingly frequent presence in our home. He would stay for dinner several times a week, often criticizing my cooking, or suggesting we order from expensive restaurants instead. He began leaving clothes in Amanda's room, and using our shower products without asking. Small things, but they grated on me. The dynamic in the house shifted. Amanda became more distant, canceling our family movie nights because Richard wanted to take her out. When I tried to discuss household matters with her, she would say, "I will need to check with Richard first." It was as if she had handed over her decision-making power to someone who did not even live with us or contribute to our household financially. Perhaps most painfully, my relationship with Noah and Lily began to suffer. Richard would interrupt when I was helping them with homework, saying things like, "Your uncle is not a teacher. Let me show you the right way." He bought them noisy electronic toys they would play with during my work calls, despite my requests for quiet during business hours. When I expressed frustration, Amanda accused me of being jealous of Richard's relationship with her children. The situation deteriorated rapidly over the following months. Richard began staying overnight more frequently, eventually moving in without any formal discussion. He rearranged the living room furniture without asking, claiming the previous setup was inefficient. He used my expensive coffee maker but never cleaned it, leaving coffee grounds to mold over the weekend. When I mentioned it, he rolled his eyes and said I was being petty. The problem, Richard told Amanda loudly enough for me to hear from the next room, is that Theodore still thinks this is his house. He needs to understand that this is your family home now. Amanda said nothing to contradict him. I felt like a stranger in the house I was paying for. The children began to change too. Richard implemented stricter rules than we had previously established. Lily was no longer allowed to play with her toys in the living room. Noah had to finish all homework before watching any television, even the educational programs I had approved. When I tried to intervene, Richard pulled Amanda aside, and I overheard him saying, "You cannot let him undermine my authority with the children." My relationship with my niece and nephew became strained, as Richard painted me as the fun uncle who did not understand proper discipline. When Lily would run to me after being scolded, Richard would say things like, "See how he encourages disrespect." The children grew confused about whose rules to follow. Richard worked inconsistent hours, often being home during the day when I was trying to concentrate on work calls. He would play music loudly or have lengthy phone conversations in the shared spaces. When I asked for consideration during my working hours, he said I should get a real office if I needed quiet. The breaking point came after I returned from a week-long business trip to Seattle. I had texted Amanda regularly during my absence, checking in on the kids and making sure everything was okay with the house. Her responses had been increasingly brief and delayed. When I unlocked the front door and wheeled my suitcase into the entryway, I immediately sensed something was different. New pictures hung on the walls, none of which included me or our parents. The familiar throw blanket my mother had crocheted was gone from the couch. I made my way to my bedroom and froze in the doorway. Half of my room had been converted into a home office. A sleek glass desk occupied the corner where my reading chair had been. My bookshelf had been emptied, the books piled haphazardly in a moving box on the floor. My bed had been pushed against the wall to make space for the desk and an ergonomic chair that looked brand new. "We thought you would not mind," Amanda said, from behind me, making me jump. "Richard needed a proper workspace, and you are gone so often anyway." I turned to face my sister, struggling to keep my voice level. "You moved my things without asking me." "This is my room, Amanda." "It is just a small change," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "You still have your bed and dresser." "Where is Mom's quilt that was on my bed?" "And Dad's watch collection from the shelf?" I asked, noticing more missing items. "I put them in the attic for safekeeping," she said dismissively. Richard thought they made the room look cluttered. Richard appeared in the doorway, then one hand casually in the pocket of what looked like new designer jeans. "Welcome back, Theodore," he said with a thin smile. "Do you like what we have done with the place? Much more functional now." "No, I do not like it," I said firmly. "You had no right to touch my belongings or rearrange my personal space." Richard's smile disappeared. "Amanda and I have been talking. We feel it is time you found your own place." I stared at him in disbelief before looking at my sister. "Is this true?" Amanda crossed her arms defensively. "Theodore, we appreciate everything you have done, but Richard and I want to build our life together. Having you here is becoming complicated." "Complicated? I pay the mortgage on this house. My name is the only name on the deed," I reminded her. "And you have held that over my head for years." Amanda snapped her voice, suddenly harsh. "Richard helped me see how you have been controlling me through financial dependence. Always the big brother who knows best, making me feel like I could not survive without you." I was stunned. "I have never tried to control you. I wanted to help you and the kids after everything you went through." Richard stepped forward. "The kids need stability, not an uncle who spies on their family life. Amanda deserves to be the head of her own household without you looking over her shoulder. Spying. These are my niece and nephew who I have helped raise for the past 5 years." I said, my voice rising, despite my efforts to stay calm. "Exactly my point," Richard interjected. "You are not their father yet. You act like you have a say in their upbringing. It is inappropriate and frankly a little strange." The conversation devolved from there. Amanda accused me of intentionally keeping her dependent. Richard suggested my attachment to the children was unhealthy and implied I was using the mortgage as leverage to maintain control over their lives. When I tried to remind Amanda of everything we had been through together, she dismissed it as emotional manipulation. "We want you out in a week," Amanda finally declared. "Richard has a colleague who needs to sublet an apartment. You can afford it easily with your salary." "You are kicking me out of my own house?" I asked in disbelief. Richard stepped closer, his voice lowered threateningly. "If you make this difficult, I have friends in the police department who would be very interested in your unusual attachment to these children. Harassment charges can be career enders in the tech industry, I hear." The thinly veiled threat left me speechless with shock and rage. I looked at Amanda, waiting for her to defend me, to recognize the absurdity and cruelty of Richard's insinuation. She stared at the floor, saying nothing. In that moment, I realized how completely Richard had poisoned my relationship with my sister. Fighting would only make things worse and potentially traumatize Noah and Lily. "Fine," I said quietly. "I will be out by the weekend." I spent the next few days in a daze packing my belongings and searching for an apartment. I found a 1-bedroom unit about 20 minutes away and signed a 6-month lease. Noah and Lily were confused and upset by my sudden departure. Amanda told them I needed to be closer to my office, a lie I did not contradict to spare them pain. The night before I moved out, Lily snuck into my nearly empty room and asked if she had done something wrong to make me leave. I held her close and assured her that I loved her very much and would still see her often. It was a promise I desperately wanted to keep, but already suspected would be broken. As I drove away from the house I had purchased to keep our family together, I caught a glimpse of Amanda and Richard in the front window. She was smiling up at him, as he draped an arm possessively around her shoulders. The betrayal cut deep, but the loss of daily connection with Noah and Lily hurt even more. 2 days later, Amanda posted photos on social media of my former bedroom, now fully converted into a sleek home office for Richard. The caption read, "Finally making this house our own." As if I had been an intruder all along, not the person who had provided the roof over their heads for years. The first month in my new apartment was disorienting. After years of a house filled with children's voices, the silence felt oppressive. I found myself automatically buying cereal that Noah liked, and stopping to look at hair clips Lily would have loved. Each time the realization that they were no longer part of my daily life hit me like a physical blow. Despite everything, I continued paying the $2,500 mortgage. My name was on the loan, and I worried about how a foreclosure would affect my credit. More importantly, I could not bear the thought of Noah and Lily losing their home. They had already experienced so much upheaval in their young lives. So I stretched my budget to cover both my new rent and the house payment. 3 weeks after moving out, I tried to visit the kids. Amanda met me at the door, clearly uncomfortable. "Now is not a good time," she said, blocking the entrance. "Richard thinks it would be better if you called before coming over." "I just want to see Noah and Lily," I explained. "I brought the science kit I promised Noah." "They are busy with homework," she replied, though I could hear the television playing in the background. "Maybe next weekend." But next weekend brought another excuse and then another. I was being systematically cut out of their lives. When I did manage a brief visit, Richard hovered nearby, monitoring our conversation. The once affectionate children seemed guarded and nervous around me, clearly having absorbed the tension between the adults. After 6 weeks of this treatment, I consulted Paul, a lawyer friend, for advice. Over beers at a quiet bar, I explained the situation. "Let me get this straight," Paul said, after listening intently. "You bought the house, your name is the only one on the mortgage and deed, but your sister and her boyfriend kicked you out and are now preventing you from seeing the kids you helped raise?" "That is correct," I confirmed. Paul shook his head in disbelief. "Legally, you could sell the house tomorrow if you wanted to. They have no claim to it. At best, your sister might be considered a tenant, but since there is no formal rental agreement, even her tenant rights are limited." His words gave me pause. I had been so focused on being the supportive brother that I had not considered my legal rights as the homeowner. "I do not want to make them homeless," I said. "The kids do not deserve that." "Noble, but you are enabling toxic behavior," Paul pointed out. "What is your long-term plan? Pay for their housing indefinitely while they treat you like garbage?" It was a fair question without an easy answer. The following day, I called Amanda and proposed a solution. I would transfer ownership of the house to her if she would refinance the mortgage in her name, effectively taking over the payments. It seemed like a reasonable compromise. She would get the house she felt entitled to, and I would be freed from the financial burden of a property I could no longer enter freely. "That is not possible," Amanda said after a brief, muffled conversation with Richard. "We do not qualify for a mortgage that size with our current income." "Then perhaps Richard could contribute," I suggested. "He seems quite successful in real estate." A longer, heated exchange followed on her end before she returned to the phone. "Richard says you owe us this house after everything our parents did for you. You got most of their attention growing up and you make so much more money than I do. This is just your way of making up for the imbalance." I was speechless at this reimagining of our shared history. Our parents had been loving and fair to all three of us. If anything, they had given Amanda extra support after her divorce. The conversation ended with her hanging up after I refused to agree that I owed them a free house. The situation became increasingly untenable. My budget was stretched to the breaking point, paying both housing costs. I had to dip into my savings, cancel my gym membership, and cut back on virtually all non-essential expenses. Meanwhile, through Noah's innocent comments during one of my rare approved visits, I discovered that Richard had quit his job, claiming he deserved a break and wanted to focus on his independent real estate ventures. He was living in my house, contributing nothing, while I struggled financially. After 3 months of this arrangement, I made a difficult decision. I stopped paying the mortgage. I did not do it impulsively. I sent multiple certified letters to the house, explaining the situation and offering several potential compromises. All were returned unopened or marked refused. I called and texted Amanda, trying to warn her about the consequences of missed mortgage payments. She blocked my number. I even tried reaching out through Daniel, our younger brother, but he reported that Amanda had told him I was harassing her and he should not get involved. The first notice from the bank came 30 days after the missed payment. I called Amanda from a different number to warn her, but she hung up as soon as she recognized my voice. When the second notice arrived, I drove by the house and saw it sitting unopened on the porch where the mail carrier had left it after finding the mailbox stuffed full. By the 4th month, foreclosure proceedings had begun. I received all the notices, of course, since the mortgage was in my name. I made one last desperate attempt to communicate with Amanda, asking our childhood friend Jessica to deliver a message explaining the gravity of the situation. Jessica reported back that Richard had taken the letter, torn it up without reading it, and told her that they were done with Theodore's manipulation tactics. On a rainy Tuesday morning 6 months after I had moved out, I parked down the street from the house and watched as a sheriff's deputy posted an eviction notice on the front door. Through my car window, I saw Amanda come outside, read the notice, and collapse to her knees on the wet porch. My heart ached for her, and especially for Noah and Lily. But I reminded myself that this outcome was the result of Amanda's choices, not mine. I had tried everything to prevent it. The aftermath of the eviction unfolded in painful slow motion. Through mutual friends and social media, I learned that Amanda, Richard, and the children had moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable area of town. The rent was nearly twice what Amanda had been contributing for utilities in my house, and the schools were known for being underfunded and overcrowded. My guilt was overwhelming at first. I would lie awake at night, wondering if Noah and Lily had enough space, if they felt safe in their new neighborhood, if they blamed me for the upheaval in their lives. I considered reaching out countless times, but always stopped myself remembering the months of rejection and hostility. The situation changed dramatically when Daniel, our younger brother, called me from Arizona. His voice was tight with anger. "How could you do this to them?" Theodore, Amanda called me crying. "They almost ended up on the street, and the kids have to change schools mid-year." I listened patiently to his accusations before asking, "Did Amanda tell you that she and Richard kicked me out of my own house? That they changed the locks and refused to let me visit the children? That I offered to give her the house if she would simply take over the payments?" Silence followed. "No," Daniel finally admitted. "She said you stopped paying the mortgage without warning because you were jealous of her relationship with Richard." I laughed without humor. "Ask her about the certified letters I sent. Ask her about the compromise offers I made. Ask her why Richard quit his job while living in a house I was paying for." Daniel promised to speak with Amanda directly. 3 days later, he called back, his tone completely different. "I talked to Noah," he said quietly. "That kid notices everything. He told me Richard ripped up your letters without letting Amanda read them. He said Richard told them you abandoned the family because you did not love them anymore." My heart broke hearing how my absence had been explained to the children. "What did Amanda say when you confronted her with this?" "She broke down," Daniel replied. "Apparently Richard left last week when the eviction became final. Told her she was too much trouble without the free housing. She is a mess, Theodore. She knows she messed up badly." I processed this information silently. The vindication I might have expected to feel was absent, replaced by a weary sadness for my sister and her children. "Where are they staying now?" I asked. "The apartment they found is terrible. Mold in the bathroom, sketchy neighbors. She is worried about the kids' safety." Without hesitation, I offered my apartment. "I can stay with my friend Chris for a few weeks while she gets back on her feet. The kids can keep going to their current school from here." Daniel relayed my offer to Amanda, who initially refused out of pride or shame. But 3 days later, facing another night of her son, sleeping on the floor of their cramped apartment, she called me directly. "I do not deserve your help," she said, her voice small and unfamiliar. "No, you do not," I agreed. "But Noah and Lily deserve better than what they have right now." The reunion was awkward and emotional. Amanda could barely look me in the eye as she brought the children's belongings into my apartment. Noah and Lily were confused but seemed relieved to see me. Lily threw her arms around my legs and Noah gave me a shy fist bump that evolved into a hug. "Uncle Theo is letting us stay at his place for a while," Amanda explained to them. "Is not that nice of him?" I stayed with Chris, as promised, visiting the apartment daily to spend time with the kids while Amanda worked. Gradually, the ice between us began to thaw. One night after the children were asleep, Amanda and I finally had the conversation we should have had months earlier. "Richard convinced me you were controlling me through the house," she admitted, staring into her cup of tea. "He said no brother would do what you did, without expecting something in return. He made me question your motives with the kids, made normal uncle. Things seem sinister. I was so stupid. You were manipulated by someone who saw an opportunity," I said, finding forgiveness easier than expected. "But you chose to believe him over the brother who had been there for you through everything." "I know," she whispered. When Richard walked out as soon as the free housing disappeared, I realized what a fool I had been. He never loved me or the kids. We were just a comfortable situation for him. Together with a financial advisor friend, I helped Amanda create a path to independence. We used what small amount of equity remained after the foreclosure to make a down payment on a modest 2-bedroom condo near the children's original school. I co-signed the loan but insisted the payments come from her account. Amanda took on additional shifts at work and enrolled in night classes to qualify for a management position. Most importantly, we established clear boundaries. Our relationship would need to be rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect rather than financial dependence. I made it clear that I wanted to be part of Noah and Lily's lives, but Amanda would need to facilitate that connection, not hinder it. 1 year after the eviction, our family situation had transformed. Amanda was standing on her own feet financially, for the first time in her adult life. I had purchased a new smaller house with a guest room, for when the kids stayed over every other weekend. Daniel had even visited from Arizona, helping us establish new family traditions that acknowledged our parents' memory while creating fresh connections. The journey was painful, but necessary. By stopping the mortgage payments, I forced a crisis that ultimately freed both Amanda and myself from toxic patterns. She learned that true independence meant taking responsibility, not finding another person to depend on. I learned that sometimes helping means saying no even when it temporarily hurts the people you love. As I watched Noah and Lily playing in the backyard of my new home during their weekend visit, I feel profound gratitude for the painful lessons that brought us here. Our family bond, though tested severely, ultimately proved stronger than the deception that had nearly destroyed it. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt someone in the short term, but helped them in the long run? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story taught you something about family boundaries and the difference between helping and enabling, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Share this video with someone who might be struggling to set healthy boundaries with loved ones. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes true family love means having the courage to say no when necessary.